Everyone, and welcome to a Modern Sales Pros event. I'm super excited to get started to this amazing topic, the secret sauce to AI success. I know AI has been a hot topic in our industry, but before we begin, I'll give folks a couple more minutes to trickle in. And I love to ask our panelists a question, a little fun icebreaker question. In North America, summer is winding to an end. So I want to know if you have any last minute summer plans as it's almost September. Uh, I'll start with Tom.
Any summer plans? My kids are now in school, so they just started last week. So summer is over in this household, unfortunately. So I'm ready to kick back on a Saturday afternoon, watch some college football. So I welcome the summer or the end of summer and entering the fall. So no
Who do
summer
you
plans.
who do you root for college football?
Um, Yeah, I guess that would be my alma mater. I went to West Point as an undergrad, so Army. They're probably the only football team that cannot play their players with the new NIL. So I don't know what the quality of football is going to be like this year, but let's just hope for a winning season.
Nice. Roy, what about you? Any last minute summer plans?
So similar to Tom, my kids started school today, so summer has ended for us this morning. Uh, Planning to be at HubSpot Inbound next week. If someone is around and want to meet up, send me
Yeah,
a note on LinkedIn. But yeah, that's about it.
nice. And David, what about you?
Well, I'm similar. My summer's kind of over, but my summer plan has been executed, which is a belated last-minute purchase of my ski passes for the winter.
Mm,
So didn't get them in spring, and I'm getting ahead of the Labor Day weekend before prices go up. But I'm in the Bay Area, so in the winter I like to spend a lot of time up in Tahoe, and
nice.
yeah, just forked out a lot of money for the privilege.
I've been getting those emails too. It's like, don't sign up
Yeah.
for your passes before Labor Day. So yeah, good call on getting ahead of the prices going up for ski season. Well, thanks for
Yep.
sharing. It sounds like kids and ski season, we're wrapping up, and I'm super excited for fall. And I'm also super excited to dive into this topic. But before we begin, I'll say a few words about the team at Modern Sales Pros. So, for those of you who are not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they struggle to solve on their own and help them to see around corners they may not know about. We do this through live sessions like the one you're at today. We also have an online robust forum, and we also have our quarterly summits, which I'll talk about in the next slide, along with our in person events. So if you're not already a part of MSP, you'll be invited to join right after this event. And speaking of our in person events, if you're going to be at Dreamforce next month on September 12th, come by and say hi. We are hosting a happy hour right by the Moscone Center, and we would love to meet you in person. It's a free event for our members, so definitely come by if you're in San Francisco. We'd love to meet you. I'm going to drop the link to register for free in the chat. Feel free to register. And some housekeeping notes. First and foremost, this event is being recorded. So if you have a friend or colleague who couldn't make it, rest assured the recording, along with the key takeaways, any links and blog posts mentioned on this call will be made available on the MSP website before the end of the day. Second, if you have a question for our awesome panelists today, please use the Q&A function at the top right-hand corner or leverage the chat, and we'll be sure to answer them live. Next, I'm super excited to announce our sponsor for today's event, Buzzboard. Buzzboard uncovers data-driven insights about small to mid-sized businesses that drive more meaningful conversations for marketers and sellers, resulting in increased sales across the customer lifecycle. You can learn more about Buzzboard in the link that I'm going to drop in the chat, so be sure to check them out. Now I'm going to pass it off to David to introduce our panelists, and I'll come back for closing remarks.
Thank you, Angelica. Happy to be here today. Happy to have, now I had this stuff up here. Yeah, there we go. Wanted to get the titles right. Happy to have Tom Pay with us here today, founder and CEO at Charlie Mike Consulting. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, everyone. Nice to
Glad
be
to have
here.
you. Glad to have you. Great. I think we're going to have a fascinating discussion. And I've got Roy Solomon, also co-founder and CEO at SalesRoom.
Hey guys. Hey, David.
Hey, Roy. Great. Thanks to both of you. The format today is really just panel session. We don't have a whole bunch of slides to, death by PowerPoint. Hopefully it's an interactive and engaging discussion for everybody. Just a quick addendum to the intro. Thank you for announcing Buzzboard as the sponsor, Angelica. Quick note, we announced on Monday general availability of our generative AI digital sales assistant, a sales engagement platform. And at the end of this call, if you stick with us, I will have a discount code for you if you want to get to buzzboard.ai and try it and save the discount code for ultimately purchasing it. I'll have that code for you at the end of the call. So please stay all the way through the session with us today to get that code. Jumping right in. What did we say about this event? Generative AI, you think it doesn't cut it for your sales success? I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't think that generative AI has something to offer them for sales, for retiring quota, for increasing velocity. You wouldn't be here if you didn't believe that. I doubt there's many doubters in the audience. The momentum of OpenAI and ChatGPT in the past 8-9 months has just been incredible. One thing I want to get to right away, and then I'll throw it to Tom and Roy if they want to pick this notion apart or add and expand on it. The folks, professor at Stanford, and I'll post this link to the chat if I can pull it up. There we go. Professor at Stanford a few months back did a webinar and posted an article, The Building Blocks of an AI-Enabled System. And he frames it, any AI deployment in the business environment, he frames it as a stool with 3 legs. And anybody who knows the 3-legged stool is that it needs all 3 legs. It can't stand, if you take one of them away, it can't stand on 2, tips over. So he conceptualizes deploying AI in a business environment as this 3-legged stool. And you think of the seat of the stool is your application. So say in our context here, we're talking about sales application, sales engagement. So that's the seat, whatever the use case is. Then you've got the algorithms, right? The OpenAI, the large language models, neuroscience models, whatever actually does the work that is AI. Then you have the platforms, and that can manifest, ChatGPT is a platform of sorts, right? It's a human-machine interface to get you access to the algorithms. The product we just announced, it's a platform, it's a SaaS-based product. You log in through a website and you're able to use generative AI technology to craft all kinds of sales and prospecting messages that are hyper-personalized. That's a platform. And then data, and the garbage in, garbage out mantra still applies, particularly with generative AI. And we're seeing a whole lot of froth in the space about data. So what does that look like? That looks like companies saying our employees are forbidden from using ChatGPT because proprietary data might escape and get injected into the model. We're seeing products come out that say it's going to scan all of your intranet and use that to train the model to enable you to do something better with AI. In our case at Buzzboard, we've long had an exhaustive database of data on small to mid-sized business, and we use that to feed the AI model in our platform. So with that kind of context, I'd like to turn it over, and Tom, Roy, raise your hand if either one of you wants to go first, or I can go around the screen. Do you have any thoughts about that model? Does that work for you? Does that make sense? Is that a good model for people to think about deploying generative AI applications in their sales environment?
Yeah, you know what? I disagree. No, now obviously, look, it's pretty much standard, right? I would say that in all fairness, I think that information right there that you provide and summarize in terms of kind of the 3-layer application is pretty much what we would expect. I think the really the amazing thing over the last couple of months is the fact that we've had a lot of this information that people are playing with. But I think the main difference I'm seeing right now is making sure that when we interact with the platforms, right, that 3rd layer, that we're interacting in the right way in which large language models can actually start processing the information. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk about it today, but I think that's one of the biggest trends that I've seen is the fact that people are interacting with that platform a lot differently. There's, people have interacted with it like it's Google, just asking straight questions. People have been interacting with that platform in a different way and kind of as if it's a person, asking it to help them kind of depict and break apart some of the problems that they're trying to solve for. And you've seen different results because of that. So obviously what the article has referenced is pretty standard. I don't think it's anything revolutionary from what we've seen today, but I do expect a lot of differences and nuances in the way people have interacted with that platform, making sure that they do so in a way which surfaces the most intelligent information for them.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the power that we see with AI, especially in sales, is the ability to process a lot of unstructured data, people-oriented information in a consistent, normalized model. Sales is very opinionated, still is, even with recording calls and analyzing them. You still need to have a lot of context to make a judgment of some sort. So I think AI is here and for sure here to stay, kind of doing two main things. One, be an assistant. So I truly believe in sales, we all going to have some sort of a co-pilot or assistants available to us 24/7, helping us with all the stuff around closing a deal and not taking next steps and making the right decision at the right time. So that's one aspect, so more productivity. Second is around the more generative stuff. So for a long time, I feel like the notion in sales of kind of one size fits all doesn't work anymore. Kind of one playbook you announce in Vegas in February that's supposed to be still relevant in October in a company in Manhattan that I'm trying to sell to. I think we all know that never really worked. And now with AI, when we can compute a lot of data in a very short amount of time, perhaps generative playbook is kind of the right way to go about it. So you David, you're trying to generate some content at the front of the funnel, kind of generating pipeline. We at SalesRoom trying to help sales team doing a meeting, kind of be a GPS for them, making sure that they're on the right path, asking the right question, go in depth in certain areas, or shut up in other areas, and suggest questions that kind of gain more buyers engagement. And I definitely think on both fronts, it's all about the data. So what we see right now with our customers, that it's very hard to define what good looks like just with one AI-based algos. So you really need a lot of information to understand their domain, understand the style, the tone, what they sell, how they sell, who is the buyer. But that complexity is what gets kind of this business in motion and this market in general interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now you both. I made some notes. You both said something I want to kind of follow up on. And Roy, I'm going to throw this as a question out to the audience. Maybe they can throw in some stuff in the chat, their response to this. You talked about AI being some kind of assistant. I used the word assistant, co-pilot. We use the word assistant. So I want to throw out to the audience what their experience is, and I'll come back to the point as people chat. Out there, you folks listening, what's your experience with in the sales arena, sales executives, AEs, SDRs, as far as viewing these generative AI tools as, are they viewing it as a threat? Do they accept it's an assistant, it's a co-pilot? Do they accept it as helpful? Curious, either if you're in sales directly and you're feeling well, what's this AI going to do to me in my job? Or if you're working with sales folks, I'm really curious to hear, and I think it'd be good to share for everybody, what the sentiment is, right? Because we also see, if you look, there's so many tools out there in the sales space, and they go, we're a co-pilot, we're an assistant, we're a gopher, things like that. It seems to be really kind of working to assuage fears that salespeople might have about this technology. So please throw into the chat any thoughts you have about that. I'll come back to that in a second. And Tom, you said something that I thought is interesting, and it's something we think about a lot here at BuzzBoard. You talked about Google search prompts, right? Or Google search queries. So my experience is if you go to Google search, there's great capacity to build very, very sophisticated, well, where'd Tom go? We lost Tom. I'm sure he'll come back in a second. My experience, there is great capacity in Google search to build very, very sophisticated search queries, but maybe it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of people doing Google searches don't use very sophisticated queries. Same thing with ChatGPT, and I don't mean to pick on them because there's other chatbots, but we use ChatGPT as the stand-in for a chatbot. I'm thinking that most people are not going to be building very tremendously sophisticated chat prompts. Most people do something pretty simple. By default, they're using it just like a Google search engine. So I'm thinking, and Tom, if you want to respond to this, and Roy, you as well, I'm thinking that the chatbots, building sophisticated prompts are really going to be the purview of super hardcore Gen AI power users, and that the vast majority of prompts are not going to be very sophisticated the same way the vast majority of Google searches are not very sophisticated. What say you, Tom?
Yeah, I think it's all about the prompt, right? So I think I disconnected a little bit there. Connection's a little bit wobbly on my end, so hopefully you guys can hear me. This is live, folks. But yeah, no, look, the prompt is what I'm noticing, right? The prompt, what you engage with on that, whatever that chat tool is, whatever that AI tool is, makes all the difference in the responses that you get. So, I think look at some and query some of the requests and questions. So, for example, what Google spits out is essentially what we put in, but we've been trained to ask the questions like that. We've been trained to ask for very binary responses.
Yeah.
What's the height of so-and-so? How large is this? Where is that? Right? We're going to start learning a little bit better, and we're going to start getting better at ourselves at putting in the right prompts. Hey, for example, I have a disgruntled customer. What are some things I could prep before my call with that person to assuage any concerns we have? Help me understand what is the best approach to talk to somebody that has a personality like this, or is a particular person within this company. We're going to start getting better at it because we're going to start learning that we're going to get better responses. So the questions that we put in are going to be unsophisticated, yes, but that's because that's how we've been trained so far. I think the best thing that can happen is once we understand that we get better and improve responses, we're going to go ahead and change our habits too.
Mm-hmm. So the model's going to train us. Is what you're saying. Oh, I think Tom, look at you frozen. You're having some internet problems. Let me jump over to Roy. Yeah. Same question. Question, but let me just also, no, it's okay. Same question to Roy. I'll just expand on it a little bit. I also have a belief that because there's what Tom said, there's a training cycle, a learning curve for people to learn how to make sophisticated prompts. Not everybody's going to want to. Not everybody, I think about salespeople. Raise your hand in the chat if you're a salesperson who wants to spend a lot of time doing prompt engineering instead of retiring quota. Is it all going to be driven through apps? Is it all going to be about, graphical user interface, mouse point and click, and in the back end, it's going to generate prompts? That's how I think it's going to shape up. But what do you think, Roy?
I think we'll end up with a combination of both. You definitely need to inspire users with preset prompts. So, I'll give an example that I'm dealing with right now. When we summarize a meeting or summarize portion of the meeting while the meeting is going, we're doing it with the buyers in mind, so what the buyer said, and we don't care about the seller said in that prism, because if I'm a seller processing what's going on in the sales cycle, in the conversation, I know what I said. I want to make sure I process and remember what the buyer said. And when I analyze it post-meeting, the prompt is more managerial. So as a sales manager, I'd like to know if the meeting is progressing, if the sales cycle or the deal is progressing based on the plan, or did the meeting met its agenda. It can also be very personal. So when we converse, buyers and sellers, we collect a lot of personal information. David, I know you're in San Francisco. Tom, I know your kids go to school and you like college football. Via AI, we can save those things for the good, so to speak. So in 6 months, when Tom and I are gonna have a conversation, I'm gonna get something prompt while I'm introducing myself. Hey, Tom likes college football, and I'm gonna bring it up. And now Tom thinks I'm an amazing seller, and that is important to me, and so on. That being said, definitely a lot of use cases around slicing and dicing the data with a query. Show me all the CEOs I spoke with in the last 6 months that like college football. Because I have a marketing campaign about college football, and I want to give you tickets giveaway and get you excited about my brand. So I think we need both. I think, again, the power is the data and how the data is being saved, and inspire users to be creative about how they use the information in a way that makes them better sellers.
All right. We shared some notes before, and what you just spoke to kind of gets to what we talked about. And this is, for our heart at Buzzboard, near and dear to the heart as well, keeping CRM data up to date, right? So all the capture and the analysis of the meeting needs to be in the single source of truth, right? The CRM. You want to expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I'm in last few years. I'm in belief that as mankind, we failed to handle the use case of humans needs to update CRMs. I think
That's the next step of evolution, maybe.
I think it never worked before it was in the cloud. It doesn't work now it's in the cloud. It doesn't work even with all those fancy UIs on top of the CRM and some of the automation that comes with it. I think the future is people don't touch the CRM. So machines do the job for us. Machines collect a lot of information, activity, context, external data sources, internal ones, gets the opinions of a human, but eventually the machine update the CRM, and maybe the next Salesforce or next HubSpot is AI only or AI-based type of CRM in a way. But I think we're getting closer from a tech stack perspective and cost of computing a lot of information, at least while OpenAI has so much money and they can burn it like there's no tomorrow. I think building a process where expecting human sellers to update the information on their own, and that's how you make decision, probably the wrong way to go.
Yeah. I'm just going to throw a shout out there. If there's anybody out there who wants to tackle building an AI reporting tool that simplifies cross-object reporting in Salesforce to find all the stuff that is so challenging to pull together in a single report, I'll be your beta customer. Give me a trial on that one. I'll try that one. So just to come back again, I'll throw this out there to the audience, and I put this in. Are salespeople, reps, SDRs, AEs, are they feeling generative AI is a threat to them? Are they signing up? Great co-pilot assistant. I love it. I love to have this tool at my side. Curious to what folks in the audience are experiencing, either the direct experience within sales or engaging with sales teams. As I see, let's see, Amanda, she writes, I use AI for sales enablement, currently using generative AI to better understand buyer personas and pain points. So there's a thumbs up. Good co-pilot for sales from a marketing perspective. Joss says, I work in marketing comms. AI is an awesome assistant. So yeah, keep weighing in on sentiment, reaction within the sales arena to these tools, right? I think there's a lot of vendors are going to great pains to frame it as not a threat, and I'm just curious what people are seeing if salespeople are feeling threatened by the tools. Let's see, what other limitations are we seeing? Tom, you and I kind of shared notes on this too. What other limitations are we seeing in the ability? And Tom, forgive me that you might have spoken this a bit before, but your audio was chopping in and out.
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. Apologies for the connection. Don't know what's going on, but if I have to, I'll remove my face from the webinar. You can just hear it in my audio. I'm sure no one would mind. Look, I think the biggest one, obviously the tough part that we're still trying to understand is, the source of truth. Where is this information coming from? How do we know it's accurate, right? Do this exercise, right, for the audience. Let's take your 3 most popular tools out there, or chat tools out there: ChatGPT, Bard, maybe for Google, or I know, Anthropic has Claude, but ask them the same questions, right? Ask them all the same questions. What is, for example, what is the most popular products of this company that you're trying to sell into, company X, Y, Z, and see what they respond. I have yet to see all 3 on a, and this is really unscientific, but anecdotally, I have yet to see them all answer relatively the same, particularly in larger companies or companies that have a lot of data on their background. Ask all 3 of them, what is the average OTE of an SDR in this market? And you'll see 3 different responses, right? Ideally, you would assume that the responses would be the same. But, I don't know if we're going to be able to figure out, or maybe someone's going to raise to the top and say, hey, look, this particular chat tool is best when you want definitive facts. This particular chat tool is best when you want to research large organizations, right? There's a lot of differences in that. So I think the source truth is going to be one of them. And I think the other big problem that probably everyone's noticing in their companies is scaling, right? And being able to say, hey, look, I've got a great prompt. I've got a great way to help look into a particular company. So, and this is the prompt that I use. How do you ensure that information is replicated, or that information is spread across the teams that need to know it the most? And also, if there's a better way to generate that prompt, how do we ensure that that's updated? So who's responsible for that? So I think the scalability aspect is going to be critical and key, and companies that are able to kind of understand how to capture that best have probably the better or more successful chance of really enhancing themselves with the AI tools that they have.
Thanks, Tom. Coming back to the chat, because I've asked people to throw stuff out there. I've got Alexander saying, basically, it's within sales organizations, it's more lack of education and knowledge on how to use the tools than it is about fear. Chris says basically the same thing. Most people are interested. How can this help? And I'm not reading verbatim. Most people are interested, but not many educated as to what to do. What do you think about those comments, Roy? What do you think about how do we educate salespeople? How does that work? Does that come from vendors who offer platforms and the training? How does that happen?
I think it's a problem right now. There's a lot of fatigueness around the topic in a way, because we've been at it for the last 6 to 12 months in different intensity levels. I think we're seeing 2 things. One, the market conditions are obviously not great for most sellers, and there is some budget constraints, and we see consolidation in the sales stack for sure, sales and marketing stacks. But alongside that, there's a lot of hype around AI and what can it do, and can it save me money? Can it generate certain things for me and generate revenue for me? Um, I think the combination of those, and a lot of vendors scream, "Hey, we do AI everything, Gen AI, GPT everything. Everything is summarized in some capacity." And all the vendors are, especially in the sales stack, all the vendors are jumping from sales engagement to revenue intelligence to the CRM to outreach related activities. So and they're all leading with machine learning in some capacity. So as a seller or as a sales manager, it's very hard for me to make a decision on a tool, on an approach, because I hear it all the time. It's somewhat confusing. I think the right way to go about it from a vendor standpoint is to really crystallize the problem that you're trying to solve and describe a very accurate picture of how it's being done today, why it's not efficient, why it's not built for scale, and then provide some POC of some sort of or proofs that via the right data and the right justification, the right assumptions based on the data, you can either save them money or bring them more customers. And I think that's where many companies trying to differentiate right now, but it's still very much confusing for most reps. So if I'm in sales ops, and I don't think they Google right now, how should I use AI? It starts with, hey, we have this problem of conversions between first meeting to second meeting. What should we do? In that discussion, AI is a derivative topic. And okay, do we have enough data to make the model work? Oh yeah, we do. We actually collected a lot of emails or a lot of conversations. Now that's an interesting POC to conduct in the business. I still see a lot of projects that are stuck with, hey, we're not ready with the data. So there is an intent to solve a problem with machine learning or with with GPT, but they are uncertain that they have enough information or enough structure of information to take on this new initiative. So in many ways, I do think, like it took cloud, the transform cloud transition took 20 years to get to a point. It's kind of the leading way to deploy software. We're still at the beginning of the majority of the data in sales and marketing organizations are not being analyzed right now by machine learning, and that's the opportunity for most of us.
Mm-hmm. Tom, I'll invite you to add anything, but also just want to throw out there a thought related to what Roy's saying. You know, the rollout of ChatGPT coincided with, like, are we in a recession? Are we in a recession? Like, terrible macroeconomic environment. I'm curious, I don't know if you want to speak to this, like, what if instead of like on the flat to down slope in the macroeconomy, we were like in a bull market still? Would the hype over generative AI be even hyper? Hypier.
Most likely, yeah. Probably. I think generative AI and everything that surrounds AI is kind of what's allowing us to kind of say what recession, right? We're talking about this recession that's occurred. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't really feel like as much as what maybe for those who have experienced a recession back in 08, 09. That was a recession. So yeah, it's definitely buoyed a lot of other tech companies and having tech in the conversation. But I mean, to kind of go back into what Roy you talked about and David, what you asked, with the audience is that, look, AI, what I've seen is there's been a lot of fear about, hey, how it's going to replace a lot of these jobs, a lot of these work. I think AI is going to be able to enhance a lot of folks, right? I think the people who are going to get displaced are those who refuse to use AI when they have the opportunity to do so. Those are going to be the ones that are going to be impacted the most. And it's for those who are willing to adopt and use it, it's going to enhance their capabilities, hopefully saving them the time and efficiency that we've seen with AI over the last couple of months. So it's kind of one of those things you get to embrace. Now, is it going to be fully embraced immediately? You talked a little bit about whole, the structure of cloud and how cloud's going to change. And there's still a lot of companies that are not on cloud yet. They should be on cloud, right? It's been, and how long have we had that discussion with? Since 95, 96? Right? So it's going to take a while. We're only in year one of it. There's going to be a lot of companies that don't embrace, understanding how AI can enhance their software, the program, or the tools, or the people. There's going to be people that will be a little bit slower to adopt to it. I think the people who are going to really, truly win in this environment are the ones that are going to really adopt AI and allow it to enhance their current workflow instead of just trying to resist it. I made a comment about this at a previous webinar too. Is look, we're going to see jobs that are going to be created because of AI, things that we couldn't even think about. Similar to how 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the idea of a social media manager or something equivalent to that was just kind of nonsensical, right? We're going to see created jobs that are going to be spurred because of the AI revolution that's going to happen. Doesn't mean that it's going to replace everything else that's already out there. I think it's just going to enhance and elongate some of these things that we're seeing they're spurring up right now.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that too, because your comments resonate with me. About 7 years ago, I was in the IoT space, and same sort of thing, right? IoT, automation in factory, all this sort of stuff. Jobs are going to go away, but it's proved true, and there was the same forecast. Well, yeah, but the jobs will change, right? Maybe IoT will eliminate one job, but it's going to necessitate some other type of job to supervise it and keep track of it. And I just want to acknowledge, I hope I'm saying it right, Chile had the same notion, right? Within 1 to 15 years, we'll likely be able to automate 80% of all jobs. Philosophical question: what can and should people do when we no longer well, they'll find another job. Hopefully they'll upgrade, right? They'll update resources. And I don't think there's any different than the age of the Industrial Revolution and the Luddites, right? That's where the term came from, is the folks who refused to adopt the new technology of the loom. It's the Luddites for it. You want to speak to that at all, Roy? Just
two comments.
The turnover in jobs and responsibilities.
Yeah, 2 comments. I think as long as humans are still responsible of buying solutions, there's going to be humans selling it. We might get to a point that more buying decisions, processes, and decision making will be done by machines. But I don't think it's going to happen in the near future. So I don't think that there is a obvious risk if I'm a rep that GPT is going to replace me. I do think the nature of the job will change, and I think AI is making it a lot easier to recognize top performer behavior and helping reps mimic it. It doesn't mean you need to follow it completely like a robot, because at that point they just copycat specific performance and get bots do the job. There's still, again, a very human element to it. But now it's a lot easier to recognize kind of the right things to do, the timing of it, the consistency of the job. And it doesn't mean that all reps are now going to be top performers, because we all know knowing something and executing it is 2 different efforts and 2 different motivations at times. But if you are a driven person that wants to build a job that is high paying, high pressure, high reward, high risk type of an environment, I think it's probably the best time to join the sales force in a way, because there is so much information available to you right now, and a lot of it is being processed for you by a machine. You just need to listen and act upon with the right intensity, and be willing to be the hardest working person in the room. So with that in mind, I don't think people should kind of find a different route in their career or what to do in their life and go to more human-oriented type of jobs. I think for sales leadership, for them to find the best recipe that works for them with the right rep is the holy grail of where AI can move the needle. For example, for me, as you can see from my accent, English is not my first language. So if a machine can help me write better emails or have a better conversation starter when I join a sales meeting for the first time with someone, that will move the needle for me. That will make it more effective, more perform better. It doesn't mean that I need to become now the best English. Like I don't need to be Shakespeare in the room. It's not me. I will never be that. But if it can help me with kind of the 30-40% activities that make my job better, definitely there is a future there. And on the other side of kind of on the other side of the pipeline, if it can help me negotiate better with suggesting the right question or analyze the right information. So I think the skills of selling is going to change a bit here and there, but more importantly, the coaching and the onboarding part of the job is going to get a lot faster, a lot smarter very quickly.
So, Roy, you said something interesting, kind of spurred a thought for me. You said something to the effect of AI help identifying the best sales performers. And at a top level down, we know who the best sales performers are, right? They post to the board. But do you see, computing power is so vast, the language models are so sophisticated. Do you see sort of like a micro sentiment analysis? Can we get to a point with AI that we're analyzing the transcript of a webinar or the transcript of a sales call where we can say, see, this person framed it this way and look at the positive response that came back? Tom, I think you're nodding your head too, so both of you jump in. Right? Do we already have that in a platform that I haven't seen, or is that where we're going to get to? And is that helpful?
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Tom. So.
I know one tool specifically that has kind of done that earlier. This is before the whole AI craze, but I know for those of you who probably use Gong or something very similar to that, maybe Chorus, they had situations where it'd say, hey, the top performers speak 40% less than the average, or hey, they use these particular words in their conversations with their clients, or they bring up the competition early in the like I've seen some of that earlier before, and I think it's probably get more enhanced. Roy, you had something else as well?
Yeah, so in not to sell my own shit, but that's what we're building at SalesRoom. And it's still early days for the industry, for us as well, but the short answer, David, the answer is yes. We can identify questions that move the needle. We can identify a lot of signals in real time during the meeting that can change behavior or course correct a conversation. How they ask the question, what's the sentiment or intensity of the sentiment during the meeting? Is it an open question or a closed one? How many interchanges there are between the buyers and the sellers during the meeting? Do they even look at the screen or focus on what is being discussed, or right now on Instagram or TikTok and you're talking to no one in a way? We know how to take all of that and through elegant alerts during the meeting, trying to make sure the rep maximize the time that she and the buyers spend on screen. And it's only the beginning. I think right now, Gong and Chorus doing that after the meeting, like it takes them time in the post-meeting experience, doing it on a very macro level. But I think the market will move into a more micro
finer analysis consistently, right? Like, yeah,
finer details on we know what moved the needle for David, the buyer, and which buttons I should press in a way in order to move the conversation forward. I can tell you, for example, that sentiment is an interesting one. Negative sentiment is better for you as a seller during the meeting than a positive one. Positive one means probably, again, I'm generalize it a bit, they are bullshitting you. They're saying all the stuff you want to hear because they will never buy anything. But if they ask the more confrontal type of question and they want to truly understand how to implement this thing, the graph goes down in terms of the sentiment, but the likelihood to buy goes up.
And right, they're more engaged.
If I'm a good seller and I see that you are bullshitting me, an A player knows how to sense that and immediately diffuse it in a way. What do you mean, awesome? How do you see yourself using it? Or is it a priority using it right now? And a less experienced seller would say, oh, great, I had this amazing meeting, and 2 months later realizing that their pipeline is empty. So definitely AI is there to help those less experienced or less performant type of reps.
Yeah, we get into this habit of probably, as I say, we get into this habit of,
go ahead.
What I've seen is that people like to just keep it positive, like Rory said, right? I think this is why I think I read a survey or a story that said, you have to mention the competitors, even if they don't mention it. Your buyers are not mentioning it, because guess what? They've done the research, they know it, right? They're not just coming to you blank and cold. They've probably done a majority of that, right? To assume that they don't know the competitors and the other options they have is to be a little bit naive. Right? So then being able to say, look, you probably looked at these competitors here and there. You probably looked at their features, and here's why I'm going to tell you. And if you didn't mention it, I'm mentioning it to you now because it's a common question that comes up. So here's what we're different, and here's why. And being very aggressive about that, then allowing them to just kind of feed you a lot of fluff. It makes sense. And to go to that, like I would love to have a tool, right? Maybe it's Zoom or some other. Roy, maybe it's your company, right? To provide that information in real time. So if I'm having a conversation, let's say it's over Zoom, it tells me, hey, Tom, shut up, stop talking. Or, hey, Tom, you haven't talked about this thing yet that needs to come up. 95% of your close rates are those that move to the next stage. Talk about this. You haven't talked about it yet, and you're already in 8 minutes of the conversation in a more concise and friendlier way, though, of course.
Yeah, I went
one of the things
real quick. I went through the call center industry, and in call center, you always have this notion of whisper coaching. You're on a call with a customer, and you have some kind of coaching in your ear that the customer doesn't hear. So I could see an application where real-time AI sentiment analysis of the call, and then the whisper coaching right to your ear. Hey, 90% of reps who frame it this way, who say that, right? If it's not already out there, it's easy to see, right? And Roy, please go ahead with what you're going to say.
I just wanted to add one other example. Again, experienced seller knows when to use a success story. So the buyer mentioned a pain point, and immediately they say, oh, yeah, actually, I'm familiar with that. That's exactly how we solved it for Johnson & Johnson, that team. And they had this challenge to do this, and we did that for them. And 3 months later, that was the result. And as a sales manager in kind of previous roles, I kept asking the team, why you're not mentioning those top 10 amazing customers that we have and what we do with them, and the smartest engineers in the world, and if it works for them, it should probably work for you. But there was this hesitation to use it, and when to use it, and do I know enough, and what if they ask me about getting into the finer details, and what if I don't know what to do? And so that today is something that we for sure can handle, and we're looking. AI should look for, did you say the right thing? And if you didn't, should alert you, hey, it's 50 percentile into the meeting, and you didn't mention a single customer. Just be aware of it. Maybe it's fine, but at least you know that you didn't mention that.
So time check, we have less than 10 minutes. I want to throw it out. I see one question. I'll throw it to the panelists in a second. Want to throw out to the audience, there's a Q&A function, but just type the questions in the chat. We're following. So we'll give a few minutes for questions, and then we'll wrap up. As a final wrap up, I'll just ask Roy and Tom to kind of give their outlook over the next rest of the year, whatever time frame. But see, Alexandra is asking, what would be the top 3 platforms you would recommend for teams to utilize? I guess it's a pretty broad question. I guess within the context of sales.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rod.
I wanted to say, for sure, buzzwords.
If you sell to small business.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Tom.
I think there's a lot of new hyped up tools out there. There's also some old ones, to be honest with you, that I still enjoy and like to use. Old ones meaning, they were kind of doing a lot of this as sentiment analysis and providing coaching and providing a little bit more of broader type of help in terms of AI space. It wasn't called AI back then. Back then it was more machine learning or whatever it is. But I love old school ones. Not old school. They're relatively new. So, but ones that we've used before prior to this whole AI boom. Grammarly is a great one, right? I love Grammarly. It allows now, if you ever used it and you use it recently, it does have that sentiment analysis that says, hey, that might be a little bit aggressive in the way that you're writing that email to that person, right? Or, hey, let's make it a little bit more concise, right? There's Crystal Knows, which is another great tool that allows you to kind of have a better understanding who you're talking to. And I don't know how the sausage works under Crystal Knows, but it's been very helpful in the past where I'm about to prospect into another customer or a person, and it gives me an insights into what they like, what to mention, kind of give me that information. So those are 2 ones that I like. I recently learned this. Futurepedia.io is great. And this kind of goes back to my comment about not knowing. There's so many new tools out there that are kind of coming up. What I've liked about it is it kind of gives me an encyclopedia of different type of AI tools out there. For example, I want to look at an AI tool that helps me build decks and presentations and want to know what's out there. I went to futurepedia.io and, AI for decks or ChatGPT for decks, and it provides me a list of different companies out there that could provide that source, and it gives you even ratings for them too. So there's kind of common things that I've seen.
Do you want to throw anything in there, Roy? Or
+1 on Grammarly. I don't write anything without it at this point, for obvious reasons. Lately, it's not new. I think where the sales stack is going again is very consolidated type of a play. So everyone is trying to do everything. So the market is going to either you're all in on HubSpot and they touch the entire go-to-market footprint, or you do it with Salesforce and their partners, or now you do it on Clary, or you're doing it with Gong, and again, they're all trying to do so many things. I'm in the camp right now of HubSpot, mostly around how to connect the dots in terms of how the lead is being generated and how you can serve that lead in a very thoughtful way, multiple touch point, automated, personalized, get to a point you remain top of mind. I think it's key in this environment where budget again is kind of with constraints, but there are opportunities, so you have to remain top of mind. So I think more than a tool perspective, I think the opportunity right now is really create a bespoke sales cycle, regardless of which tool you use, but you really need to put the time, energy, and focus to design something that works for you.
Thanks. We're just coming up on time. I'll throw 2 quick questions to the panelists. One that came to mind on the last question, and it's probably like a longer conversation than we have time for. But for both Tom and Roy, what do you have for our audience? How do they know that a product that has AI for real, or if it's just like AI washed, right? Like we talk about greenwashing products that are, oh, they're organic, they're green, or they're environmentally friendly. I don't know what the color is for AI, AI whitewash. Help our audience pick out products that are jumping on the AI bandwagon with no real AI in it. Or can we? Is it possible to know?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to know, but I think really what goes back to kind of social proof, right? You could have the greatest marketing material out there. You could write the word .ai off of everything. You could throw all the buzzwords out there. But what I always like to see, and this is great about the MSP community, ask a question. Hey, has anyone used this particular program or tool? Has anyone had any experience trying this out? What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? That has been becoming probably my biggest way to validate whether something is the real deal or if it's all just hype.
Any thoughts, Roy?
I would say assume right now that most of the AI is a glorified if statement. The question I would ask is how long it's gonna typically on average how long it's gonna take to implement this thing. A true learning system should not take a lot of time, given there is data, of course. If the answer is months, then there is still a very manual part of the job, or the value is very generic. I think that's the problem. Even with the systems of today, Gong and the others, again, amazing companies. It's not true. In a way, it's not true AI. It's not. Those clusters are still very generic. Doing it right takes tremendous amount of data and modeling. And if you don't have the data or they don't have the data, assume that the value, it's going to take time to meet with the value. Not necessarily it's a bad thing, but I think if it's a true AI or true statistical model or not, doesn't really matter as long as it solves the problem for you. So just make sure you go with the right, with the vendor that truly understand your problem first, and not an AI solution looking for a problem.
Last question. We're right up on time. I'll throw it both you, Tom, first. 20 seconds or less. Any projections, any forecasts for the rest of this year, for the next year in this world? Are we going to hit the singularity?
Yeah, well, maybe something's going to come off the top. I think one of the key things, and I talked a little bit about it earlier about, I think the future is going to be where there's going to be roles created that are purposely built or purposely generated because of the AI that's being leveraged across the organization. So, obviously I'm very bullish on AI and the ability for it to enhance people's work and enhance companies' work. But I think one of the biggest takeaways I would say is that one is remember your customers at the end of the day, because I think a lot of times we have thought about AI from our perspective, right? From how do we make it better? How do we make it more easier for us, for easier to write, easier to generate the content, make my day a lot better. And then sometimes I think we often forget the customer at the end. How are they receiving that information? Is that what they want, or is that the solution that you generated as a seller or as a business because it was easiest for you? So just remember that, like, don't lose that insight, because at the end of the day, the delivery piece is one aspect, but how they receive it is another.
Thanks. Roy?
Short-term projection, I think the market obviously going to remain somewhat uncertain, but I think from sales perspective and software perspective, I'm optimistic. I think there are going to be more accelerations of buying the right solutions kind of at the right time, and AI is definitely an accelerator of that. I think more over time, more people will buy seeking for the promise of more automation, more smartness, more productivity, more ideation to some degree. So if I'm a seller or a marketer, Definitely, I should remain very close to the trends and when the market is going and understand prompting. And it's very easy to learn concepts today and very easy to utilize those solutions. Most of them are free. I think OpenAI is going to remain close to free for the next 10 years or so. So use that in your advantage as much as you can, because I think it's going to make you a better performer one way or another. In the long run, again, I said it before, I'm a big believer that data processing, collecting and processing, we're going to look back and think about, we let people write into databases as if kind of people still cooking with fire and stones.
Right. All right, we're at the top of the hour. That's the time that we have. I want to thank Roy and Tom, our guests. I'm happy to host and moderate this discussion. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you to Modern Sales Pros. I put this in the chat and just verbalize it as well. I promised a discount code at buzzboard.ai. Use intro 2023. And thank you, everybody. And back to you, Angelica, to close out.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Roy and Tom, and thank you everyone for your questions. Just a quick reminder that this event is recorded, so if you want to replay all the awesome insights that our panelists shared, we will make that available before the end of the day on the previous event page on the MSP website. I want to say thank you again, and we will see you at the next event. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.